understand why you're 40 years old playing the game still. So.
Well, I mean, what game do you think you're going to be playing when you're 40? When do you think you're going to stop playing games? What's the age? What's the cutoff age?
When you're out of high school and college.
You're a high school kid?
Yeah, I'm in high school. Yeah.
How old are you?
Why does it matter?
Well, I mean, you foresee yourself in the future quitting something you love, like video games? Do you not love video games? You just cruising through it.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of a waste of time when you're that old. But. Well,
how do you know? You're not old yet. I mean, I can think of probably reasons that video games would be a waste of time for a high school kid, too. Do you have a 4.0? Are you in honor classes to get more than a 4.0?
No, but...
You know what I'm saying? There's more things you could be doing to improve your life than playing video games, too, right?
Yeah, you study and not play games.
Hey, just recreation, man. Having fun. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
All right, then.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Week in Culture over here on Honey Badger Arcade. My name is Brian. I am joined by John, the problematic white guy, and we have our AI assistant, Vivian James. We're going to be looking at some cultural news of the week and giving our little spin on it. So I hope you guys, if you are just now joining us for the first time, I'd really appreciate it if you could smash that like button so that my memory doesn't completely kill my computer. So I got to I'm going to close one of my processes. I'm going to close Discord because it is a hungry bitch.
Yes,
and,
it is.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we will be good on that for a while. So anyway, how are you doing, John?
Oh, awesome as always. I just got moved over here from Will of the Fans that I do on Tuesdays prior to the start of this show. And, we were talking about, we weren't so much talking about the news of the week because the guys on the show were actually the news of the moment. Going through a whole bunch of silly fallout from something from last Saturday's HypnoCast, which I'll just leave at that for right now because, we don't need to devolve into all the insanity until it catches up to our front door, which might actually happen because of things I was saying for, the duration of time that I was over there.
Well,
so be ready for that.
It is what it is. All right. Well, yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about what's coming down the pipe at the end of the show, because I do have some news, some good news, I think, and I'm gonna mention that later. So please stick around for that. But without further ado, let's get into the topics. So first we got this one. I thought I would make it the main thing. Sony is reportedly had reportedly tried to stop Crimson Desert from launching on Xbox. Crimson Desert is pictured here. Sony reportedly offered Crimson Desert developer and publisher Pearl Abyss a limited PS5 exclusivity deal, preventing the game from launching on Xbox for an unspecified period of time. However, Pearl Abyss rejected this offer, opting to self-publish the game as they believed it would be more profitable. This is according to a financial blogger who attended the investor relations conference last month. Sony also reportedly likened the game's atmosphere and story to its own first-party flagship, Ghost of Tsushima, while Pearl Abyss revealed that it was inspired by games like The Witcher 3, Assassin's Creed, Red Dead Redemption, and The Legend of Zelda, seemingly the newer Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom releases. It's an ambitious project, to say the least, so much so that 5 years after being announced, we still don't have a concrete release date. I think wasn't it also the case that this Crimson Desert game was a kind of a spin-off of an MMO that came out a while before that I believe was also had the word desert in the name? I don't know if you guys remember that, but I just thought about that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Possibly, but I believe that this is more the case of a developer kind of watching what happened with Shift Up and to a lesser extent, Arrowhead, in the way that Sony just kind of came in and tried to appropriate their capacity to actually kind of operate autonomously. And to me, that's what I really appreciate about them, just kind of telling Sony to kick rocks, and that, we'd rather be the master of our own domain and not take some quick money from you just to be beholden to all your, how-tos and whys and therefores and all that kind of stuff that would be, in the pipe if they actually would have taken this exclusivity deal. So I give them all the props in the world. I'm actually even more interested in checking out this game now, knowing that it's full well going to be available on PC day and date whenever it does come out. And if you go to their website right now, there's like a 50-minute playthrough of actual gameplay and stuff like that. Yeah, it's
okay.
Sweet. Yeah.
Well, I think that what we're seeing here is the shift in the way that games are released and how they are released, and the whole concept of exclusivity is kind of
Black
going...
Desert Online, which I
Black
actually
Desert.
have.
Yeah. Black
I
Desert.
That's that in my PlayStation library, so I'm gonna have to check into that.
Yeah. I think it's like, well, it at least I have this. I think it's connected to it, but because I think it was going to be like a sequel to Black Desert or like a new version.
Studio.
It's the same studio, right? But then they moved away from the MMO model and towards this different model, this more action adventure model.
This is a single player game, to my understanding.
Yes,
that's actually just going to be big and expansive and just kind of feature rich and I mean, like I said, it looks pretty impressive from what I've checked into it and just my limited kind of understanding of what's going on. But yeah, looks really good.
Yeah. So I was gonna say I think that what's happening here, like I was saying before, is that this is a sort of demonstrating a fundamental shift in the concept or the idea of exclusive game rights. This is a holdover from the console wars that goes all the way back to Nintendo and Sega, where game consoles were sold based on what was on them. Now, when it got to the point where we were dealing with Nintendo's GameCube or their N64 and the Sony PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, the Xbox One, or the original Xbox, not Xbox One, because that's the third Xbox. Well, anyway, the original Xbox. The whole thing for the consoles was who has the best games, and it was all about getting exclusivity. And I think that Microsoft and Sony are still playing those games, but as as more and more people are moving to alternative type platforms like PC gaming or Steam Decks or whatever it is, that game, that sort of game of checkers that Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo were playing, it just isn't really applicable anymore. Nintendo has basically accepted that it is a niche. It's kind of got its own brand, and it doesn't need to be a part of the sort of rat race that that Sony and Microsoft are participating in, because they're both trying to get the exclusives on each other. But it's like when we actually covered this already. For even now, Sony and Microsoft are still doing this stuff. So Sony claimed exclusivity to, for example, Stellar Blade. That was their game. This is our game. You can't get it anywhere else. Well, now we are learning that Stellar Blade is coming to PC, which we talked about on a show a while back. So it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing too is both Microsoft and Sony have undermined themselves, through their own version of trying to set themselves up as network-based subscription models. They've effectively undermined the whole concept of having consoles to begin with, because of this whole idea of you don't actually own your games. We want you to constantly be connected online so that we can sit here and regiment how you're playing and what you're playing, and if we want to go in and make edits to the content or this or that, we reserve the right to have you be beholden to our systems. And by systems, I don't mean the actual consoles. I mean the systems of their network infrastructure. And so that in of itself has completely destroyed the whole concept of even having a console, unless you're a company like Nintendo that says, well, yeah, these are just our own properties, and the only way to get them is to be on our systems. So trying to make these second party studios that have to be beholden and lose their artistic integrity in a day and age where people are we spend the last 20-30 minutes of these shows highlighting what's going on in the independent game sphere, because authenticity is the currency of the moment and the future, and you're not going to get that through these corporate structured systems that are about everything kind of like falling in line and being very samey, because they all have to adhere to corporate dictates and that sort of thing. So I feel no loss for Sony in this. Like I said, this actually makes me more interested in checking this game out, because it's not going to be beholden to these corporatized, network structures that would otherwise limit them and do day and date patches and all this kind of fuckery that like we saw happen to shift up for their game. And and I did not purchase Stellar Blade for the PlayStation when it came out, but I definitely have it on my my wish list for when it comes to Steam, because it's
waiting to see the mods they come up with.
Exactly because that's the other reason too why nobody's really too concerned about sticking with consoles these days, is because we all know that where these limitations end up coming into play that will keep a console game from ever actually being the fullness of its capability. Even if Steam wants to sit here and say you're only buying a user license and not actually buying the game, we still find ways to own these things in the PC realm and actually make them ours beyond the what's generally there as the thing that gets put out on its release, because of mods and the mod culture itself.
Yeah. So anyway, well, the way I see it, like I said before, the whole idea of exclusives, I think that's going away, and Sony and Microsoft are still catching up to that concept. So, but it is what it is. I think, I think overall it'll be a good thing. Now, again, it goes back to what you were saying. Unless people are going to have actual physical ownership of the content, exclusivity is kind of meaningless. So we're just going to bring it to PC. I mean, God of War is coming to PC. Horizon is on PC. The Spider-Man games are on PC. So Sony kind of knows the writing's on the wall. And even with this last story, they were only doing a timed exclusivity. They were just going to get it first. But I mean, that's also that's just going to have to go. It's just not going to, it's not going to work. So, but anyway, let's move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. So in related news about trying to essentially get exclusivity or block releases or whatever it is, control what people have access to, the Kuwaiti government is blocking the release of Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Activision forced to cancel local pre-orders and offer refunds. And this is kind of interesting because I was interested in this because there is a political angle here. I mean, obviously, when you get governments involved, it's inherently political. But I want you guys to hear this and give me your thoughts. I haven't played a Call of Duty game since Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1, way back in the day. And I don't have anything against them. I know they're very popular. I don't have anything against them. But I just haven't really been caught up. And I think that in a way, the Call of Duty franchise is one of the reasons why our games have become so expensive to make, that it's hard to make profits, because they're always spending so much more money on the marketing and the actors and the graphics engines and all that. So that's an aside, but that's kind of my thoughts on the Call of Duty games as a franchise. But I mean, I think they have a place in the sort of
they certainly did everything they could to dilute their own property by making so many variants of the thing. Even
that's Activision's whole thing. They saturate until they saturate the market until nobody cares anymore. Yep. They do that. They did that to Guitar Hero. So Guitar Hero was created by Harmonix, and it was the first one was a lot of fun, and it was there was this wish fulfillment of, I wish I could be a rock star, and it sort of satisfied that. And then I think after the second one, Activision bought them out, and they got a different developer on board, and they just cranked out Guitar Heroes every 6 months. And they were we know this is going to die, so we're just going to ride this until it's gone. And it was. Guitar Hero did die. So
and then by chance, the thing that they converted it to, the Rock Band did the exact same thing, to where it became Rock Band Aerosmith, Rock Band Metallica, Rock Band Beatles, Rock Band My Aunt Fanny. It just You know, it's
No, it was. Well, I think we could talk about that more, but I think it split into two different models for those kinds of games. So like Activision bought the rights, or they owned the rights to the Guitar Hero brand that Harmonix were the developers behind Guitar Hero. They bought it from them, and then they gave it to another studio, which I can't remember the name of, doesn't matter. And they continued it, and that's where you got Guitar Hero Metallica, Guitar Hero Aerosmith, Guitar Hero Green Day, I think there was, or maybe I'm thinking about, no, I think they did that. They did Green Day, and then some other bands. And then Harmonix went on to make Rock Band, but their model was very different because even though they made sequels to Rock Band, the thing that made Rock Band, I think, better in terms of the way that they're sort of like model for customers is that whenever Activision made a new Guitar Hero, you had to buy a new Guitar Hero game, and you only had access to the songs on that disc. And it was like, you know, like Metallica was very possessive of their intellectual property, so they wanted this to be exclusive, but it became like a thing where that's, you know, Aerosmith, etc. They were all, so you had to buy a new game every time, and you had to switch the games out if you want to play different songs. But what Rock Band did, which I think was a lot smarter, was they basically released music as downloadable content, and they would like release new DLC every week, and they would tell you what you were going to get, and then you could decide if you wanted to buy it or not. And it was like $2 a song. And I just think as far as models go, that's way better. It's kind of like, it certainly was more considerate to, you know, people's investment, but it's just kind of one of those things where, like, because the association with like the oversaturation, it ended up just killing the entire thing for everyone. Yeah, I think it was doomed to happen. Like the karaoke games still exist, but they're, you know, it's not like a it's not a.
I mean, Rocksmith is still like a thing that kind of grew out of that. But Rocksmith, you know, like it because you can actually like use like a legitimate guitar for Rocksmith.
Yeah, you can actually learn to play guitar playing Rocksmith. Yeah, I think that's actually it's a smarter way to do it because there is a payoff, but it's also going to probably sell less because most people who want to play those games, they just want to have the experience. They don't necessarily want to learn to play the guitar, right? So it's a bit of a trade-off. But anyway, that was a big digression. I'm sorry. We're going to come back. So because we're talking about Activision, and this is what Activision does. That's what I'm saying. They don't care about oversaturating a market with something, even if it ends with the destruction of that thing. But, you know, for whatever reason, Call of Duty remains a massive like sell. So anyway, just days before its global launch, the government of Kuwait has officially announced that they will be blocking Call of Duty Black Ops 6 from releasing inside of their borders. The game, which is set to hit store shelves on October 25th, which is like a week away, will no longer be available in Kuwait due to last-minute decision made by government regulators. So here's why, okay? At this time, according to a spokesperson, the title will not be available for release in the region. As a result, all pre-orders will be canceled and refunded. We remain hopeful that local authorities will reconsider and allow players in Kuwait to enjoy this all-new experience in the Black Ops series. Many of the gamers and industry insiders who have raised their eyebrows have speculated, so this is the speculation about why this is. Why would Kuwait ban the game? The game was banned. The speculation is the game was banned due to its portrayal of the historical Gulf War. Not only does the conflict hold significant historical and political weight in the Middle East, but Black Ops 6's promotional materials feature appearances by numerous world leaders involved in those events, including U.S. President George H.W. Bush, UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and even Iraq President Saddam Hussein. In addition to these historical cameos, the game is also set to recreate actual events from the war, including the initial invasion of Kuwait, as took place on August 12, 1990. Given the sensitive nature of the war in the country's history, it's plausible that the Kuwait government took issue with how the events were depicted in the game. So I thought this was an interesting story because it brings us back to, like, you know, video games as propaganda. And I think that it would be fair to say that the Call of Duty games are propaganda in part. We know, for example, that they use these military shooters in the military to, like, you know, train people and stuff. And I've heard that people, some people say that they use these games to recruit as well. So I don't know if that's part of it, but what I would say is, this is my last thought on that, and I'll get your thoughts, John, if you like. Yeah. That it's interesting that you're the people who are taking issue with the sort of like political stuff in video games. This is aside from the people who deny that it exists, which is ridiculous, because they just don't want to face the reality is that it does exist and it is a real thing that we have to contend with. But that this isn't only happening in the West. The Middle Eastern countries, like their governments, and maybe they have, you know, nefarious reasons for blocking it. Maybe they don't like the presentation because maybe it's a little too close to home. Maybe they think that it's deceptive or misinformation. We all know that these like military conflicts or these issues, these global political issues, are never simple. It's never like a black and white thing. So this is what they're probably concerned with is that this is an example of, you know, like sort of Western corporations, game developers making content about a conflict that according to the Kuwaiti government, they don't have any right to, or they fear like how this will be interpreted. So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that the response to this game from the Kuwaiti government is telling, because it sort of speaks to this broader issue of propaganda in games.
Yeah, no, I would say that, you know, it's interesting because we're nearly 30 years out from when this conflict took place in the world. And it's just kind of interesting to see that this is where we're at as, you know, I guess it speaks to the sensibilities of the world that we're living in. Whereas, say, you know, 15, 20, 30 years ago, you know, when these games were first coming out, I remember, like, you know, the first Medal of Honor, you know, like was, you know, obviously tied to the events of the World Wars. And then, like, there was games around the turn of the century that were about the conflicts in Vietnam and all this kind of stuff, you know. And, you know, as controversial as these wars have always, you know, kind of been in terms of what they're speaking to, this is the first time I can really think of in a situation where an entire nation has outright just kind of said, well, we're going to ban it from existence, because, you know, war is hell, and like there's a certain kind of sensibility that kind of goes along with that. You know, like is it wise necessarily to go and have a game based on a conflict that you know, like you're only able to play from one perspective? That's debatable. But, you know, at the same time, you know, I'm sure that people in the Middle East are just as capable of running VPN services as we are. So, you know, it's like you ban the game, like ultimately you're just kind of like, you know, just trying to save face at a certain level. But the end user gamer, when it's all said and done with, they want these things. They're going to get these things, you know, by any means necessary. And so if that means changing your geolocation on where your, you know, console or whatever you're using thinks you're emanating from, you know, much like we sit here and say, you know, if you want to avoid all the woke bullshit, you know, in a game like, say, Spider-Man 2, then go and say that you're playing the game from Baghdad, and like you won't have to deal with all the, you know, silly ass stuff in there that we find to be a little bit deplorable. So the reverse is true, you know. So if like there is somebody out there who's ultimately wanting to play this, just because their government says no doesn't mean that the market still won't allow for them to find it in one way, shape, or form or another. So, you know, this seems like a lot of pomp and circumstance that ultimately is going to signify nothing other than a reduction in, you know, mass sale possibilities. But, you know, still, you know, like anybody who was going to want to get the game probably is still going to be able to get it when it's all said and done with.
Yeah, yeah. But again, I think ultimately it just comes down to like Norwegian Black Templar said, and this might be one of the reasons why Kuwait is blocking this. He says it wouldn't surprise me if they had to make the game justify the Iraq War. So, and yeah, I think that, well, obviously, again, you know, when you know the Pentagon is investing in this stuff, and the military-industrial complex is putting money into it. By the way, your money. Then yeah, they're not just propagandizing the people who play the game into like believing a narrative, because especially when you're dealing with historical stuff, it's extremely slippery. Like to get into like some, you know, stupid like revisionist history stuff,
right?
And so it's not just like Westerners, but it's also the representation of the Middle East. We, you know, the story of everything going on there. It's very old, and I think that it's awfully presumptuous. So yeah, I can understand the suspicion from the Kuwaiti government. So all right.
And I would agree with you that that the propaganda aspects of this are something that are very real. And you know, it's one of those things that, you know, he who controls the past, you know, controls the present and also leading into the future. And so, like, you know, the world that we're living in, like I say, this is just kind of more of just kind of a statement of where we are as a society, both locally, domestically, globally, you know, internationally, you know, all these things. Like, everyone's fighting for their ability to have the narrative control. And you know, whether, you know, and the higher they are in their hierarchies, the more that they want to actually be the ones who get to kind of lay claim to what people can and can't accept as, you know, perspectives on. But the sad thing is too, is like, ultimately these are works of fiction, even if they're based on historical, you know, accuracy to the best of their extent. You know, it's never going to be 100%. And it's always going to be fictionalized. And so, like, if you could actually just kind of like lead with that and actually have that be the thing that you try to reinforce, rather than try to hide from it and run away, you're actually giving credence to the thing that you're afraid to speak to or just kind of let play out, which is very much the reality that we're living in right now, where people would rather censor.
Well, if you're doing fiction on a historical backdrop, go wild. Just tell us that, you know, be upfront about that. This is fictional, right? But don't pretend. You can't do both. You can't be like, you know, historically accurate and then a little bit of fiction, because you have to like lean in and say, look, this is taking place during, you know, X period, Civil War, Napoleonic Wars, whatever, you know, ancient Greece. But we're going to fictionalize a lot. You know, like look at and I'm gonna move on after this, but I just want to put a finer point on it. Look at how Ubisoft tried to essentially, like, you know, rewrite history through their Assassin's Creed games, like the one that takes place in London, or especially the ones that came later, like the I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the game, but the one that takes place in ancient Greece and the one with the Vikings. Like they just basically, you know, tried to like inject a bunch of like woke modern day identity politics stuff into the games. Even then, I know a lot of people are talking about these Assassin's Creed Shadows and this new one, Assassin's Creed Hex, that's in development. But it was going on before that. It was Assassin's Creed Odyssey and the Viking one, which I can't remember the name of. Ragnarok? Assassin's Creed Ragnarok? I thought that was God of War Ragnarok. But whatever. We know.
Both are. I think they both
Valhalla.
are.
It's Valhalla.
Okay.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Yeah. But again, those were, you know, they were, like I was saying, they were creating a revisionist history. The English one, there's like a mission where a side quest where you help Karl Marx, you know, and you like go around doing stuff for Karl Marx. And he's obviously not presented in any way, in the way that he actually was. He was basically a filthy neckbeard that, and you know, was. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, to your point, to what you're saying, like, I think that's why they are so bold now with what they do with Assassin's Creed Shadows and this Hex, is because they've gotten away with it by degrees, slower and slower. You know, like when Black Flag came out and Freedom Cry and Assassin's Creed, the one was it still one of the numbered games when they did the story in Americas?
That was Assassin's Creed 3, where you were like the Native American guy. That was the third one. Black Flag came after that because for whatever reason, the third one was a failure. Even though I was kind of looking forward to that because, well, anyway, I liked the first two games.
Right. But in the first games, though, they were at least more open about the idea that they were trying to fictionalize aspects of history, but they were trying to be more contextually based in the history that they were fictionalizing. Whereas now, like they sit here and they try to say, no, we're being as historically accurate as possible when they've completely gone off the reservation in terms of like what it actually pertains to. And that's, the thing where it's like, I think, when we complain about what's going on with Shadows and ultimately what's going to be the case with Hex, is they're so far removed from the setting and the this and the that, but they're trying to proclaim it to be factually based. That it's kind of like, like if you're going to do fiction, do fiction. If you're going to do history, do history. And if you're going to do somewhere in between, then you at least have to be upfront about the idea that this is a fictional account of a historic period rather than, like trying to have your cake and eat it too. So it's definitely a sign of the times for where we are. Yeah,
for sure. All right. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I know that like a lot of people who watch us are not Call of Duty people, but I thought that it was interesting.
People, but yeah.
I thought it was interesting. Yeah. So anyway, speaking of failures, so I want to make a point about this. So this is about Concord, and the headline reads, I know Concord's dead, okay, but people who were involved with the original production of the game are still kind of trying to figure out what happened, like they're just not able to like reckon with this. But okay, so this is from That Park Place. Shout out to John Trent. I use That Park Place, Bounding into Comics, Smash JT, and the Fandom Pulse blog to get a lot of the my resources. So shout out to John Trent.
Articles.
Yeah, because they usually are on top of it. They're like some of the first ones to get it, and I can generally like unpack whatever. I know they have bias, but I can unpack it and sort of be objective or try to. But anyway, so there's a Concord insider that alleges the game's original parent company, probably Monsters, will not survive the game's catastrophic failure that saw it get shut down by Firewalk Studios and PlayStation in less than 2 weeks after its initial release due to a lack of players. So let me see here. Essentially the announcement came after the game failed to attract any kind of substantial player base. When the game released on August 23rd, it peaked at 697 players on Steam. It also did not do well on PlayStation. The latest data from PSN profiles indicates that only about 1,825 people purchased the game. So I think the news of this, there's a couple things I want to touch on. One is that this is going the domino effect of this failure is going to destroy not just Firewalk Studios, but also the parent company, probably Monsters, which is a weird name for a company. And so that was the first thing I would say. And I think that Sony is also going to take a massive hit from this, considering how much was invested not just in the game itself, but also in books and comics and television shows. And like they thought this is more than just a game. This was like a brand, like movement, a mass movement. And they've done this a couple of times and it hasn't really resulted. And this is again, I think I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. This is what happens when you are so focused on the story you want to tell and how you want to like basically be a filmmaker making a video game, and you want to get the message out there and using all of these avenues to do it, but you did not like cover your bases on the fundamental level of having it be well directed art wise, be attractive to look at, and be a very good game. Like it's not, from what I heard, it's not a bad game, but it doesn't stand out. So this is the problem, is that those things that should have been priority number one because games are very expensive to make, ended up being at the bottom of the list. And the priority number one was like, okay, we need a tranny doing the voice for this character, the one that's pictured on the screen. We need a tranny to represent the tranny. We need pronouns. We need, like to buck the trend of, I don't know, attractive characters, and we got to make them all kind of ugly, and then we'll go from there. And it's like, well, that you've already lost. So that's the one thing I want to say. The other thing, and this is related to the first thing, Colin Moriarty was on Twitter. Let me see if I can I play this video? It's 9 minutes long, but I'll share this tab. Okay. Colin Moriarty has a podcast. Colin Moriarty used to work for IGN, and he has a podcast that he does with a guy named Chris Raygun. Chris Raygun used to make, he makes music, and he used to make videos on YouTube. He used to make kind of like, I wouldn't say anti-woke, but critical of, feminism and kind of woke culture videos. But then he stopped because he couldn't follow through on it, because he's a bit of a lib himself. So that means that the thing is with libs is that they get to a point that they're not willing to cross, because they still believe that they are better people than other people. And so there's this limit this wall that they hit where it's like, well, I'm still a better person. I have to stop. So he pulled back, and maybe he couldn't handle it. I know that he's got terrible problems with anxiety. I met him once. I went to a convention in California in 2017. I met Chris Raygun there. But anyway, they do a show together. I don't watch it, but on here, Colin Moriarty talked about the problem in the sort of the dev culture around this game, and he called it a culture of toxic positivity. And the toxic positivity was designed to essentially create an environment where you can't make any criticisms.
Right.
So,
that certainly exists.
Oh, absolutely. And so this is why it failed. So not only did people put the wrong things up front and center, which is pronouns and women of color and body positivity or whatever it is they were going for, not only did they have the wrong approach there, but no one was allowed to criticize them.
Right.
They all had to just support each other, without unquestioningly. And this is what is ultimately what cost them. And the irony of this is the last thing I'll say about this. The irony of this is that people like Colin Moriarty and Chris Raygun, they won't learn anything from this, because they're still going to say that the DEI sort of hiring and these Sweet Baby Inc. companies, they're still a good thing, even though they create the climate of toxic positivity. Right. So, and this is a big problem in what killed this game. So.
Yeah, no, and in response to that, you've heard me say many times, it's you can't spell design without DEI, which was the formation of getting DEI into the game industry, was through the narrative design kind of aspect of making games. And so, I was reading an article about this last night, another thing on Twitter. Unfortunately, I didn't grab links to it because had I known we were going to talk about this, I would have. But it was about the development of Ratchet and Clank, and specifically the character Rivet. And the person who's behind that was some woke white woman who, just made it a point to constantly try to make people uncomfortable. She was doing the Kim Bel-Air method of, trying to just make sure that
terrify them.
Right. Yeah. So the character originally was supposed to be kind of busty and have a feminine shape to it. And so she went on her little crusade about how important it was that, women can be heroes and they don't have to even look like women, basically, because just because. And if you look at that Rivet character, it looks like a Karen, but in a anthropomorphized form of what is otherwise an animal. But that game, to my understanding, is the last game that's come out in the Ratchet and Clank series because it didn't sell well, because it got to be so much about like the message and the this and the that, and it lost its way because it wasn't about the actual game mechanics and like advancing the story. It was about let's promote another girl boss kind of, you know, bullshit fuckery that gets into so many things, which is what happened with Concord here. You know, it's number one, like, you know, trying to do a live service model game is not an easy proposition already, because so many people have already bought into the properties that they're going to buy into, and you can't just, you know, like
there are only so many gamers out there, and they can only be in one place at one time. So yeah,
and things are so expensive now that once you actually start buying into certain things, you can't really buy into other things. You know, I mean, that's probably part of the reason why I spent, you know, the better part of a decade with Grand Theft Auto Online being my mainstay as the game that I would just kind of be like, oh, well, I'm going to play some GTA because I've invested time and energy and all this kind of whatnot into it, until it got to the point where now I just kind of like, why would I spend any more time with a game that is so chore based and so empty and lackluster, when, you know, the only kind of redeeming value behind it is spending time with my friends, and they've all given up on it too. So, you know, like something like this, you know, nobody's going to even buy into to begin with. And so this was Sony's biggest folly from the onset, was thinking that they could just, you know, create a market space for themselves that had already kind of been eroded away and shipped. You know, like, it's live service does not sell in 2024. And I will say that, you know, to anyone who of any degree in the game industry, whether they listen to me or not is a whole other story. But, you know, it's like, just look at your own sales charts, you know, and you can see it. People are done with this shit. They're, you know, like, it was one thing, like, you know, 20 years ago when we saw $5 for horse armor and people were up in arms about it. You know, and they kind of got away with normalizing a lot of this DLC insanity, you know, to the point that they tried getting away with, like, you know, season passes and the this and the that's and all this kind of stuff. But now here we are, where we just kind of like, we're all just so over and done with it that it's just easier to just go back to your game library, that for all, like, you know, our backlogs that we built up, you know, through Steam and all this kind of stuff. You look at what people actually play and what people actually watch people play, you know, on Twitch or on YouTube these days, and it's not really the new stuff. And the only time people even, like, you know, will even dedicate anything to something new is if they're outright kind of doing it for the funsies, like, you know, Hypno playing through Dustborn or Awaken 9 or what the hell ever, and it's specifically for his griftcasts, you know, where people are paying him to kind of make him suffer and be tortured by going through this thing, so that we can all have a good laugh at it and be over and done with it and never have to, like, invest in it ourselves. So, you know, this is Sony's hubris at work, and for them to react in the way that they have, by trying to raise the prices on all their systems, take out, like, actual functionality from the consoles themselves, to the point that, like, you know, like, the disk drive is an add-in that doesn't even function as a disk drive, because you actually have to have your system plugged into the internet for it to, number one, be registered, but to even be used, it has to be able to be connected to the internet time and time again. So you can't even just buy a console now to, like, get your own games and just play them and not ever have it connected to the internet. So this kind of refers back to what we were just talking about how these companies eroded their own player bases and have made it to the point to where no one gives a shit about, you know, consoles going forward. Like, I don't know that there will be I know they say they're working on a PlayStation 6 and they're working on what'll ever be possibly the next Xbox, but why? You know, like, if they don't actually hit, and they're going to make sales with the, you know, the PlayStation Pro now, and unfortunately, and, like, it will give them, you know, whatever measure of reinforcement they need to say, oh no, people are still buying this, but I'm not. I don't
know. I don't think console sales are doing as good as they used to.
No.
I think most people are just playing on PC now, or they're playing on their phones.
Well, there's no reason to invest in these things that only do one thing. Like, quite honestly, when you look at the current systems, even though I have a PlayStation 5, I said to my nephew the other day, it's like, you know, if I could go back and do it all over again, like, I wouldn't put my money down on a PS5. I probably would have gotten an Xbox Series X system and just put it in developer mode and used it as an emulation machine for all these other things and put Linux on it. And then it's actually like a functional computer. So you can actually get more out of the Xbox currently, which has become highly irrelevant to most people because their reliance on the Game Pass system, you know, and you see Sony doing the exact same thing, like we were just talking about. Like their adherence and reliance to being network-based systems has completely, you know, delegitimized any reason to have their consoles, especially if those consoles aren't going to be able to have any function beyond just the bareness of a console, especially one being so locked down in a closed garden kind of setting that Sony has done with this current iteration. Like, you know, having it to where like you can't use, you know, like any open headphone broadcast system. You have to buy like their $200 headset with a dongle on it and all this stupid bullshit. They're breeding in their own weakness, and you know, only the most simplistic A space J space kind of Sony pony fanboys are going to be the ones that go along with it. And once actually people have a better understanding how limited these consoles are to invest in, you know, it's like, I guess like, you know, like there's still a market for people buying Apple systems and this and that, but I'll never buy an iPhone. I'll never get any of like this closed network shit because I want to actually be able to have the ability to have some autonomy over the technology that I use in my life. And if that means I have to spend a couple of weeks learning a little bit more about how like, you know, things function or ways that I can go about modding it for myself, I'm a legitimate gamer. That's the kind of stuff I'm willing to do. You know, I don't just want someone to like lead me down a path every step of the way. Like, you just tell me the general direction to my destination, I'll figure out how to get there myself.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you guys think about that one in the comments. Again, you know, massive failure, ultimately a cultural problem. We have to be able to criticize, and the people that were behind or like leading the sort of like, you know, push to create this disaster of a video game were people who were so ego invested, they were so lacking in humility that they didn't allow criticism, and so they released it believing that they were the shit, and it turned out to just be shit. And so now it's dead, and a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. But, you know, I mean, you should have seen the writing on the wall when you realized you were living in a culture that did not allow criticism because you didn't want to hurt people's feelings. And right. Colin and Chris Reagan, you guys should be taking notes because this is exactly the kind of culture that you have allowed to grow and fester and spread like a cancer. So, you know, here we are. And you can't call this a one-off. This is a problem, not even just in video games. This is the problem with our entire culture in general, is that no one can be honest, no one can tell the truth, but everyone has to be expected to appear sincere. And no one is allowed to say what they mean.
Yeah, there's a term in gaming called, you know, and this is one of the few things that we actually learned in our game design course when I was in art school that actually meant anything. And it's the only salient point that I've really taken away from my time in design was be able to kill your babies. And by that, like, you know, like the thing that you find sacred, it might not actually be the thing to put all your time and investment into. And if you spend all your time trying to, like, you know, like look for these sacred cows or like, you know, like the thing that you're just kind of like, no, we absolutely have to have this, then you're generally dead weight within that design, because if you're going to like be that on about something, then you've kind of lost the focus of what any of this stuff is really about, which is storytelling and actually giving people, you know, like at a point of immersion that is their point of immersion, not, you know, your zealot kind of religious kind of sermon center to try to like transfix someone and make them think like you and be like you and all this kind of stuff. That's not what games are. It's not what they should ever be, you know?
Yeah, right. For sure. Okay, let's move on to the next story. This is a short one, but just pointing out, because like I think we're heading towards another massive disaster. And, you know, like the video game crash is going to be a slow thing. You know how like when, you know, Frodo finally put the ring into Mount Doom and like the tower with Sauron's eye on it was slowly falling to the side and Sauron was looking around like, what the fuck is happening? Like, that's kind of what's going on with the games industry right now. It's going to be a slow collapse, and it won't be complete. It'll just be like the massive studios that have gotten way too big for their britches. And what is the next thing on the docket here? BioWare partners with NVIDIA to give Dragon Age the Veilguard away for free if you buy like their new GeForce Now Ultimate Bundle, because they're concerned about poor sales. And I think that that's fair, considering everything that Dragon Age the Veilguard has that we know about. It sounds absolutely cataclysmic. Here is a tweet from Stuttering Craig. He says, my retail insider says physical copies are not better. Between both the gold and standard editions in their 800 plus stores, they have just under 2,000 pre-orders, and that's across both the PS5 and the Xbox. Yeah. And he also says that Dragon Age the Veilguard has 1,069 pre-orders total in their 900 plus stores, but in perspective, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom has had over 4,400, and that's only on one console. So the word is, if you want, if you want to get Dragon Age the Veilguard, but you don't want to pay for it, I guess you can buy the new NVIDIA GeForce Now Ultimate Bundle, and then they'll just give it to you because they just want more of this game in people's homes. So. Right. That's all I wanted to say about that. It's it's over. It's over for BioWare cells. F's in the chat for Dragon Age the Veilguard. And you know what? Good riddance. I don't know what to say. You guys, you were printing money before this with this franchise.
This is the inverse of what we were talking about at the beginning. This is like a company saying, oh, well, we're not going to actually be able to get by on like marketing this to individuals. So let's just take the bag from someone who's willing to, front us a little bit of burn through money. But there's not going to be an attachment to this. And when NVIDIA sees that people, even if they do get this 6-month bundle of, I think it's $100 you have to spend to kind of pre-purchase 6 months of service for NVIDIA Now, which you can use for a variety of games within your Steam libraries and this and that. I'm pretty sure that, people even getting this as a freebie, and you only have like a limited time. It's only a couple days that this is even going to be the special. So I don't think that they're going to actually be able to get any kind of bonuses or anything like that, because it'll probably be based on, if they hit so many, play hours or whatever, they might get some kickback. But for right now, they're just getting the initial kind of, hey, NVIDIA, we see that you have a lot of money to waste. Would you like to be able to say, hang your hat on we have a BioWare exclusive? This is desperation. This is what a company does when it knows it doesn't have anything worth its own weight in, in actually trying to market it for itself. Because like I say, this is the inverse of what's going on with Crimson Desert. Crimson Desert's very much just like, we don't need to platform ourselves to a specific thing to carry us. Our game's good enough that, we can actually just put it out for what we're going to put it out for, and we'll get our audience, and that's what it'll be. But, the writing's on the wall here. Dragon Age is dead. It's over and done. Everything I've seen for this game in terms of early playthroughs and whatnot by the Shield network that they have trying to, get people to go along with it, it shows it for being a vapid, just action-based kind of, thing that on the most shallow surface level exists, which when you consider that it's so about promoting trans culture, is kind of obvious that it is all shallow and surface level, because don't matter, as the expression goes, you can change the don't judge a book by its cover, because even if you change the cover jacket, the story on the inside is still the same. And the story here with Veilguard is it's complete and utter shit. And it doesn't matter how they try to spin it, how they try to cover it up. You spend any time with it immediately, you're not going to want to be invested in it. So the best thing that they can hope for is to try to get these people who are willing to just look at it as something that they could spend a few minutes with because they're bored and it was free.
Yeah.
So, fuck 'em.
I wanted to say something. GeForce Now is not a video card.
No.
So this isn't a game that comes with a video card or GPU. This is actually a service. So I don't know if you know what GeForce Now is, but it's basically a subscription service you pay for that allows you to stream games to your machine and it will like run it at like the highest specs. So let's say you have a machine and you can't. So the that's what you are paying for. So you don't actually own the GPU; it's not yours, and the bundle is $99. Okay, and it gives you for 6 months of GeForce Now, and you get Dragon Age: The Veilguard, and it includes GeForce RTX 480 rig, RTX on, and access to the RTX 4080 servers, up to 4K resolution and 120 frames per second, no ads, and an 8-hour session length. So you are not buying a video card. You are buying... No. I mean, you're granted, it's a powerful machine, but you are streaming a powerful machine to your PC
timeshare
to play the game. And yeah, you're paying for like 8 hours sessions, so you can't play longer than that, and it's for 6 months, and it's $99.
Right.
So
if you were to buy a video card nowadays, you get saddled with Awaken 9 as the freebie kick in, which is yet another piece of shit that can't sell itself.
Yeah.
And so like that's what I mean is like you can tell when a company does not have confidence in the thing they're putting out now because they're just going to be doing these corporate to corporate sales.
Yeah,
and, you know,
I don't really hate the idea of that because I know people who just can't afford like powerful machines, and I want to play games with them.
Like, if the GeForce Now,
go ahead.
Well,
no,
all right, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, go. It's okay.
All right, so like if the GeForce Now service actually allowed for you to have access to this machine for more than just gaming, I might actually utilize a service like that just simply because you and I right now, we're at technological impedance. It doesn't allow for us to use our VTubers as easily, right? And until like we take care of our hardware situation, this is kind of going to be the way that we roll, right? And so, you know, if I could use one of these machines to more appropriately run my OBS setup and do all the stuff on the back end through that kind of middleware, that might be something worth considering. Unfortunately, you know, like there's still going to be latency issues, and those don't go away when you use this network service. So when they sit here and say, oh, you're going to be able to have 120 frames in a second and all this kind of stuff, based on what? Based on like, you know, the initial core hardware? Sure. But when you factor in network latency and things like that, those are, you know, best of opportunity.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how they would do that. I've never used the service before. I'd be curious to try it out to see, but like, yeah.
I have used it back in its infancy when it was something that you could get for free initially when they were trying to get people, because, you know, much like a lot of these services, they start off next to nothing, and then slowly but surely they ratchet up the price over time. And my experience with it back then, you know, it was okay, but it you know, and I was living in Seattle at the time, so I actually had like really good quality broadband and everything like that. But, you know, the latency factors and like, you know, all the kind of stuff that happens and the bottlenecking, it's still a factor even today. So like, even if you're tapped into the most high-end system, you know, through the internet, there's still all this other network traffic and things like that are going to like have an effect on it. It's just like, you know, is Stadia still in existence? No. And why is that? Too much latency, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the exact same kind of thing. It's a little bit more robust than that, but not by much. So.
All right. Well, so yeah, this I think this screams of desperation from BioWare, and I don't know. I don't think it's gonna. All I'll say is it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for them. Xeranx gave us a Rumble rant. Thank you, Xeranx, for $5. I'm gonna play a sound for you. Let's see. Maybe we'll do this one.
Just like a woman.
Thanks, Skeletor. And he says, I've never wanted to pay to borrow another person's hard drive more in my life. Give me Dragon Age. Laugh emoji, laugh emoji. All right, but anyway, let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. We're going to move on to the next story. We got one more dark one, and then we're going to have a couple of lighter ones. So this one I think is way darker than I think people give credit. So we're going to share this tab instead, just so I have an image on the screen for you guys to look at. All right. So Disney's Dana Walden drops in likelihood to become next CEO dramatically after new announcement. So there's this woman named Dana Walden who works at Disney, and she was actually lined up. She's on the right there. The one on the left is obviously Jacqueline Kamala Harris. So, you know.
We did it, Joe.
And let me read the article. This is from That Park Place. Again, shout out to Jonathan Trent. I think it's important because this article shows us that, like, essentially sort of reinforces what I've been saying for a long time, that the political and the cultural are, like, intrinsically linked, okay? Like I talked about, and a good friend of the channel, The Fourth Age, who makes great videos about comic books, he has gone in great length talking about how Sana Amanat, who is very good friends with the Obamas, created Ms. Marvel, or was behind creating Ms. Marvel, and was also essentially the head of Marvel Comics, was responsible for a lot of the characters that came out around her time with the company. And it was all based on this kind of, you know, DEI stuff, although they didn't call it DEI at the time. So anyway, and of course now Disney owns Marvel, so you can kind of see how this is all connected. When the ABC News presidential debate happened, this was the one with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, the squawking heads of the Hollywood intelligentsia were all convinced that Dana Walden had shored up her chances of taking the next CEO role once Disney's head honcho Bob Iger rides off into the sun. So the plan was, okay, Walden, who is next in line to be CEO at Disney, or at least was being deeply considered for the role of CEO at Disney, who owns, you know, Hulu and ABC, and like it's a gigantic umbrella with a lot of cultural clout, obviously, a tremendous amount of power. She is very, very close to Vice President Kamala Harris, even to the point of having introduced Harris to her husband. And though Walden was not brought up through Disney's ranks, as would typically be preferred, having a former Fox exec who is besties with the forthcoming president was a carrot other Disney execs simply could not match. So a whistleblower at ABC claimed that she was next in line, and Disney confirmed many of these allegations, including that the moderators prepared to fact-check the candidates in order to prevent another CNN fiasco. Some industry analysts even went so far as to say the quiet part out loud. This is from The Wrap, quote, "But it is not Walden's only win of late. In the wake of the successful ABC News debate last week between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, with moderators David Muir and Lindsay Davis winning widespread praise for handling Trump's lies, i.e. debating with him as well. If you guys watched it, it was essentially 3-on-1. And a massive 67 million Americans tuning in. Suffice it to say that Walden is on a roll," end quote. Putting Disney so squarely in the middle of politics was always a major gamble, but for Bob Iger, it was a gamble worth taking. And should it have been obvious at this point that Harris would win as a result, Dana Walden would likely be getting ready for her coronation. Now, however, the crown is looking farther away than ever. So they already had a plan in place that Kamala Harris would win, and then they would put this woman in charge, and I guess they would work together on something. But that doesn't look like it's going to happen now because they're not certain about the outcome. Like, essentially, the outcome of the election is kind of up in the air from the perspective of these folks over at Disney. James Gorman is a major player in the banking industry, the chief executive of Morgan Stanley. He surely has plenty to do rather than be at the head of another company, yet that's exactly what he's taking on starting in January of 2025. already tasked with heading up the committee and selecting the heir of Bob Iger 2.0. It was surmised a cakewalk until the last few weeks. Gorman would oversee Walden's transition. Harris would win, according to the polls, and Walden would be brought in either late 2024 or 2025 for a transactional period in which Iger could take all the accolades and Disney could bask in the leadership of a new female CEO, probably the first ever female CEO of whatever, because it's always history when women do it. Oh, sorry, herstory when women do it.
Get it right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Gorman and other institutionalists, and by the way, we're talking Disney, the White House, and banks.
Yeah.
It's always the way, isn't it? Meanwhile, Gorman and other institutionalists would make sure the company stayed on the right track and hopefully north of $100 per share, half of what it was under the very temporary Bob Chapek, who decided to try to extricate Disney from politics. A big no-no. But Walden is struggling mightily. Disney Plus isn't very often on the Nielsen charts outside of Bluey. Hulu, with a price tag north of $30 billion, does not get on the charts for acquired properties, but acquired often do not pay the bills like original content. I think the only thing good on Hulu was Shogun, which was really good, and it was really a shame that it was on Hulu. And unfortunately for Walden, ABC and ABC News aren't doing great either. They got the worst ratings, terrible ratings, the worst ratings. I've seen them; they're bad. All of those are her babies. That what Walden did bring to the table was her relationship with Kamala Harris. But if Harris doesn't become president-elect in November, Walden is actually detrimental to the company as its lead. Instead of having an inside track with the most powerful woman on the planet, Walden would be seen as anathema to the future Trump administration. Disney would be utterly on the outs with the executive branch. While that might be okay for a time, Disney also has been involved in plenty of issues that could warrant possible investigations. Yeah, like the stuff with grooming the kids and shit that's happened in their parks and such. So adding Walden to that list of reasons for the U.S. government to look their way would not be the wisest of decisions.
Yeah.
This
is woke white woman culture looking out for itself. Like that's like
woke white woman culture. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the whole impetus to platforming Kamala into position, and like everything that they've been doing is all about like the reinforcement of woke white women culture, and that's why it's ultimately going to fail, is because like the one thing that we've learned over the course of the last 30 years of all this PC fuckery leading to where we are here today is that women are not only just as capable of fucking up as bad as men are, but more often than not are actually worse at it, and like more
better at it.
Doing it. Well, yeah, depending on how you want to how you want to phrase it. Yeah, like they are more likely to fuck up a thing that would otherwise be a sure thing.
Again, that brings us back to the previous thing where I talked about toxic positivity. That's literally the reason why women are set up to fail, because we're not allowed to hold them to any standards, so they just do whatever, and then everybody pretends like everything's okay, and then she can just pass the buck. So women in leadership is made nearly impossible because of the toxic positivity.
Women in leadership is almost a misnomer. There are women in positions of power, but they generally shirk responsibility. They don't take the losses. It's always somebody else who has to be called in to take that like any kind of disdain or whatever may befall them. It's like, well, no, that's what my yes people are for, and so that I can actually have a sacrificial lamb that can somehow make it look like I'm not the one who has to be holding the bag. And that is to women's own detriment. And this is the reason why feminism doesn't work, is because they don't actually try to actually elevate themselves in a way that is substantial. For as much as they want to sit here and say, well, it's time that a woman, had an opportunity. It's like, well, then, yeah, those opportunities to fail have to be part of that. And if you're only there to rise and shine and be stunning and brave and be lauded and cheered upon for all that you do, but never actually be held to account for anything that you lack, and you don't actually learn from your losses or anything like that, women are far worse in positions of power than, it's kind of like the difference between the devil that you know and the devil you don't know. Like, for as much as men may fail left and right throughout time and history, which we do, a lot of us actually learn more from our losses and rebound from it and come back stronger and actually know how to actually deal with, people trying to hold you to task or criticize you or just kind of chuck whatever spear they can your way to land some kind of glancing, fatal blow or at least a mortal wound. But women, they're treated with kids' gloves and they're afraid to actually get in the dirt and actually fight for themselves or actually have the capacity to be accountable for their failings or anything like that. And so that is why women in positions of power will never be leaders. They won't be. And that's the biggest failing of the Kamala Harris, fuckery that's going on right now. People don't go along with it when they actually have reality-based kind of ideals and thoughts in their head, because you can just kind of see it for the confetti tinker tape parade bullshit that it is, where it's all just surface value and nothing actually has any substance behind it. This is all just trying to get people to concede to an ideal and go along with ideological nothingness. And we're living in a time where that is coming to an end because people are done putting up with the toxic positivity. And I don't care how you feel about me. You can outright hate me for the things I say because I'm willing to actually speak truth. By all means, bring it on. I don't mind it. In fact, I encourage it. Hate away. Chuck your spears. I don't give two shits. I'll catch them and I'll throw them right back at you. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, yeah, anyway, so that's the... this is the problem that Disney is now facing. They have done something that they thought was certainly putting them on the moral high ground. They stepped into the political arena. They assumed that customers, their essentially their base, the people who prop them up, who support them, who financially invest in them, they presumed that they were naive or stupid and they would just follow their lead. And now they are, seeing the writing on the wall. They're living in a bubble. Trump might win the election. I don't want to say will. I want to say might, and I hope, right. Because I don't see another option. He either wins or things get worse. That's right. Just the reality. So, but they just don't see that. They don't understand what working class people, regular people are dealing with, and they're going to pay the price because now that they've stepped into this arena of political, fuckery, they can't really just step out and pretend like they never were a part of it. And the worst part, this is the worst part. You know what's going to happen? If that woman gets passed over because Trump wins, not only do they lose on the front that they don't get their person into the Oval Office, but that woman could turn around and attack her own company because she got passed over. She could tell them, the Disney company is extremely misogynistic and sexist, and they didn't give me the position of CEO, and I should have gotten it. I said CEO, which is probably appropriate, and I should have gotten it, right? And I'm going to make them pay, and that's because you have already created the conditions for this kind of resentment. Mm-hmm. When you stepped into this, global homo, gay race, communist, Marxist resentment politics, and so now you're going to reap what you sow. So that's it.
And it's going to be great watching the woke eat themselves because they're always so willing to do it too. Yeah, because it's never good enough, and their activism will
for sure
kind of encounter each other. And that's what I was sitting here in the previous show that I was on today was talking about how even though I may be at odds with people on certain issues and this and that, I can actually at least kind of take into account the wider aspects of the culture war that we're a part of. And I usually try to keep any kind of personal what the hell evers in a DM thread or what have you, to just kind of work through the issue to the best of our my ability in that point in time. And sometimes things get resolved, other times they don't necessarily get to the point that I would necessarily want them to be. But do people really know anything more beyond that other than me just saying that, yeah, this is a factor of life, and sometimes you don't agree with everybody 100% because you shouldn't, and just because I don't agree with you 100% doesn't mean that I'm going to throw you under the bus at every opportunity. You know, oftentimes more than not, I look to those people as like, you know who I can talk to about this and actually get a good read on whether I'm like, you know, talking like something that's like, you know, like this whole thing about be willing to kill your babies. Sometimes you actually have to take the people that are like, don't worry, you don't have to kill your baby, I'll kill it for you. And like they'll point out like, you know, the flaws in your logic and like actually give you a better understanding so that you don't have the big fail. You just have like, you know, a minor disagreement and you kind of like figure it out and like, you know, make the thing better. But that's like, you know, not part of toxic positivity. That's actually, you know, working shit out with people that are willing to actually be open and honest with you and give you direct criticism. And direct criticism may hurt for a moment, but it's better than like, you know, the alternative, which is to like, you know, completely have like, you know, billions of dollars of failures, like in the instance of, you know, what we were just talking about with Sony and Concord. So do you really want to like, you know, like go down this primrose path of like everything is all perfect and nice, only to find out that the place that you think is your ultimate destination is a place that you're moving even further away from ever getting to? Or do you actually want to have somebody there to kind of like, you know, like help straighten you out a little bit from time to time, say, hey man, you're kind of getting a little bit off path of like where you're actually trying to get to. You know, for as much as they want to say men are terrible at taking direction, I've seen a lot more men kind of change course and figure their shit out and try to like, you know, right their bearings more so than I have these women in positions of power.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. We got to move on to the next story. So we're going to talk about Zachary Levi. So Zachary Levi, I'm pictured here. He was the actor, obviously, was in Shazam playing Captain Marvel. I don't know, did they ever name him as Captain Marvel? Because he was the original Captain Marvel.
I think they have to go by Shazam because of
because of the ownership problems. But
before, historically speaking, he was the original Captain Marvel.
Yes. But anyway, so he was in the movie Shazam, and he's also been on a show called Chuck, which I never watched, but I heard from people it was good. But anyway, so you might not know this, but he recently endorsed President Trump he endorsed Trump for president of the United States. And he claimed that there are thousands of people in Hollywood who are terrified to claim that they are, you know, either conservative or libertarian or support Donald Trump or whatever. And The View, because those witches are totally like on point, intelligent, and rational people, they basically tried to debunk him. Specifically, Whoopi Goldberg came after him, claiming that like Hollywood is actually not right wing or left wing. It's kind of mixed and pretty Republican, in fact, and all this. Who knows what she means by that? But Zachary Levi wanted to, because again, he came out and said, I endorse Trump, and he brought up a few examples of other people in Hollywood that have been like relatively vocal about their politics, or at least their beliefs and their values. Like I can name a few conservative guys off the top of my, or I don't like to say conservative, I'll say non-leftists. Okay, I know of a few actors that are non-leftists that are pretty big names. Jon Voight, who is, if you didn't know this, Angelina Jolie's father.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I know that he looks in the mirror every day and says, "What have I done?" So Jon Voight, Dennis Quaid, who he's doing some work in that regard. There's a guy, Neil McDonough, who was on TV. He did like Justified, and he was in the Captain America movie. He played Dum Dum Dugan. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill doesn't get work in Hollywood anymore, but yeah, he totally is. Like, Mark Wahlberg has sort of changed his direction and moved more that way. Shia LaBeouf, after going through a much needed character arc over the last 5 years or 6-7 years or so, is emerging on the other side, seemingly okay. So there are a number of people, mostly men, that are Henry Cavill. I don't know about that.
A good term to use would be to kind of I guess plug one of the other channels that I'm on, reality based.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood. Yeah, Clint Eastwood's another one. Stallone also, So anyway, there are a number of people who are at least non-leftists, okay? But she tried to claim that. Well, let's just listen to Zachary Levy's thoughts. This is a short video. We're gonna play the whole thing. I'm just gonna share the tab, and this was on Twitter, but it was from an Instagram live. So this is Zachary Levy sort of responding to Whoopi Goldberg and the Views claims.
Oh, and by the way, to Whoopi Goldberg and to Sony and to all of the folks at the View, I don't think it's accurate to say that somehow Hollywood is both a liberal and a conservative town. To Whoopi's point, back in the day, there might have been a bit more of a balance, and there have always been more, let's say, conservative-leaning stars that have been able to say those things. But you really have to be at a certain level of your career in order to get away with it. Number one. But number two, that was also back then. And I think naming just Jon Voight and Dennis Quaid, and really you only named Jon Voight, Whoopi, somebody else had to help you with Dennis Quaid, of the thousands of actors in Hollywood that you could only name two, I think actually speaks to that. And what that means is there's plenty, and by the way, they have sent me lots of messages, plenty of people in my industry, in Hollywood, that are terrified to publicly say that they would vote for Donald Trump or be conservative in any way. That's why you don't see them. That's why they're not very prevalent or prominent, because they know that there's ramifications for this kind of shit. But like I said, y'all, our industry is going to be fucking gonzo. Like, it already is. We're getting eroded. The pandemic and the strikes and all of these things, they've already eroded it so much. So, my cry to all of you out there, you closeted conservatives, closeted Trump voters, y'all, it's now or never. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I do whatever you feel like you need to do. If you need to come out publicly and say it, if you feel like you still can't, then don't. I would never pressure you to that. But know that if what you're afraid of is somehow the backlash of an industry that's not going to exist very soon, then don't let that hold you back.
All right, so is this the sort of like flip side or the opposite effect of the toxic positivity that we talked about? Mm-hmm. There's like this, right? Like this like extreme sort of like chilling effect that, and I know like Zachary Levy's talking specifically about Hollywood, but we know it's not just Hollywood. We know it's like everywhere. It's in the boardroom, it's in the classroom, it's on the university campuses, it's in the animation industry, it's in the gaming industry. We know that. Yeah. And I mean, he's 100% right. Like, it doesn't matter that whether, like, I don't care if you support Trump or not, but the point is not that. The point is that why has there been a climate that has sort of taken root and made it impossible for people to talk about their values if they don't line up lockstep with the orthodoxy?
Because we live in a time of censorship, and a lot of people are very, prone to their own forms of authoritarianism that they're willing to get behind. While at the same time sitting here virtue signaling that they're anything but that, but you actually find out quite quickly who these people are in the moments of revelation. And because like they'll show and tell for you all day about how their supposed virtues are the thing that matter most in this world, but they don't actually have any principles or values to stand behind. Whereas people such as yourself, myself, these people that are fighting back against this woke toxic positivity mindset, the whole thing that I spent the last show that I was on this morning talking about was the events of this weekend of people like freaking out over the term spear chucker, and in doing so, becoming spear chuckers themselves from the safety of their keyboards, trying to sit here and say, oh, you're racist, oh, you're bigoted, oh, you're this, you're that, and because of that, you should be canceled and utterly destroyed. And it's like, all right, so number one, you evidently don't even understand the purpose of context and being able to, take a joke and laugh about it. And number two, you're actually the very thing that you're sitting here trying to project that you're not. And it's becoming all too obvious that these people that want to sit here and decry the problems are the problems, because they're not actually able to just shut up, shuffle up and deal, and go along with whatever cards they may get dealt and deal with it on to the next hand, but because they want to somehow think that everybody gets a win as long as they all just play by the specific set of rules. But that's not life. And that's not how you actually end up with anything that approaches what the concept of equality actually pertains to, which is why so many of them, give the game away when they talk about equity. Equity is vengeance. Equity is a mindset that sits here and somehow seems to think that you can brute force a lie into the truth. And because these people are so fixated on being able to gaslight everyone down this primrose path of lies and bullshit to go along with what they're espousing is somehow the way that we're all going to get ahead, they don't understand. But when they sit here and talk about the greater good has always led to the worst kind of evil throughout time and history. And so, we have no other chance than right now to be here at the front line of it, to actually speak our mind, talk to these people face to face, telling them exactly that I'm not afraid of the words that you want to throw at me and try to label me as, because I actually do exist in reality. I understand that sometimes I'm going to win, sometimes I'm going to lose, but you know what? I'm going to be able to get the fuck up on my own 2 feet and try again. Whereas any of these little sons of bitches that you go and you just deflate them ever so slightly and they lose it all and they just explode. They can't fucking handle it, and they need someone else to come in and fight their battles for them, which is why they're all so into authoritarianism when they don't think that that's what they're actually about. But they're full of shit, and they're retarded. And it's just that straightforward.
Well, they're going to live in a world that is the opposite of reality, because they're not working with all of the data, because they have limited the scope of what they're willing to listen to. So, but it's all right. It's okay. Like I said, this is like they have created this climate, and Zachary Levi is right. He's saying Hollywood is dying, and it is, because it's not adapting to the changes. Like more and more people are just making their own movies, making their own shows on YouTube. I mentioned, I think I said this on a Friday the 13th stream I did, where, by the way, we are still doing Friday the 13th streams. We might do one tomorrow.
Good, yeah. I've been asleep the last couple times, so as long as I'm awake, I will be there.
Yeah, okay, cool. But I mentioned that there was a fan-made Friday the 13th film that's on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. It's got nudity and everything. I don't know how they got away with that, but you can watch it on YouTube. License. And it's not, I didn't finish it, but considering it is like a fan-made project, and there's a lot of good fan-made stuff out there. I mean, I think some of the best lightsaber battles I've ever seen are on the fan-made stuff, even more than some of the stuff from the prequel trilogy. So, Hollywood's going to basically disappear into irrelevancy, and one of the reasons is because they are more and more and more making their sort of subversive propaganda obvious, and they are they're not listening to more than half the population, and and considering their perspectives, they're just shitting on them over and over and over, and it's just not going to work out for them. They're losing money hand over fist, pretty sure pretty soon there won't be anything left. So Zachary Levi's entirely right to point that out. The other thing is too, I was going to mention a couple of other actors that I know are more based. Tim Allen from Home Improvement and Toy Story. Last Man Standing. Yeah, Tim Allen, Kelsey Grammer. Yes, Frasier is also pretty based. And I had another one on my mind too that I was thinking about. But yeah, I'm sure people are going to mention more people. So I think maybe what's his name? He was in Justified too. He was the main character. Timothy Oliphant. Oliphant. Yeah. He might be. I don't know. Maybe not. But if you guys think of any other people, go ahead and throw their names in the chat. But anyway, Xerius gave us $5 and says, Whoopi's retort doesn't even make sense. One of Ben Shapiro's first books was based on the subject Doctor Strange. I mean, Zach is talking about.
Yeah. Well, Whoopi doesn't really have retorts so much as she has retarded responses.
She lives in a bubble. She lives in a bubble, so
and not
she doesn't know
responses, the
reality.
reactions. Yeah, like she's an NPC herself. She's just a high paid one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. She's got a script. She's just going to follow it. Yep. So, okay. Let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. I think it's probably a good idea to see, how more and more actors, more and more people that live in these bubbles are becoming, they're becoming more brave, or they're calling for it. I really appreciate Zachary Levy saying, hey, man, stop hiding. What are you even protecting yourself from? Just be who you are. Just be honest with yourself. Say what you believe and do so fearlessly. And I agree. I agree with that. So
yeah, the time is now, or the time will be never. So, and that's what people really need to understand about these moments is if you don't take the time to, it's kind of like I saw the meme last night of like that face you make when they take your guns away and it's just a stack of skulls.
Yeah,
that's history for you. So you're either going to fight now in this moment and have the ability to fight again tomorrow and the day after. Because there will always be opposition. There will always be, things in life that aren't necessarily 100% where you want them to be. But if you go along with this pie in the sky kind of idealism that, well, if we just do it this way, it's just going to work. Well, get ready to be on the precipice of the edge of a big fall, and all the stupid useful idiots that they use to get there will be the first ones that they put up against that wall to kind of create the stack of skulls that I was just talking about, because they're not the ones who are actually going to defend themselves. They're not the ones who are going to think, oh, like this thing is actually stacked against me and it's going to try to come for me. No, they think that they can actually, bargain with the demons, and as long as they do their best to stay on their good side, they'll somehow be one of the ones that will be elevated above it all. That's not what any of this is about. It's very dark. It's very, very hostile. And if you try to align yourself with evil, good luck. I'd much rather have people think the worst of me when I actually giving them their own leeway to live in forgiveness, even if that means just letting me do my own thing and stay the fuck out of my path, then that's forgiveness in some instances, because I'm forgiving you the opportunity to just do your own thing and just allow me to do mine. That's what live and let live kind of pertains to. But that's not these people. But we should move on to the next point.
All right, let's move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. So Elon Musk in the news. He's been more and more active in the culture war. Obviously, his purchase of Twitter was part of that. Meanwhile, landing rockets vertically, which is freaking out the sort of state-funded science people of the internet. They're just so pissed off about it. But whatever, he did it. You didn't. So, but yeah, he's been involved in this battle against DEI, and he went to the recent Pennsylvania town hall, or he went to a Pennsylvania town hall, and spoke out against the woke agenda in a definitive manner. And obviously he's been more and more vocal about this stuff. But there was something kind of interesting that struck me that came up. So we already know that Elon Musk has been talking to Trump about possibly entering his sort of circle to clean up the government, the federal government, in the same way that he cleaned up Twitter, which is that, I mean, that is so amazing to think about. How many people, how much of this bloat is going to be cut loose potentially if it all goes to plan and he's able to do it. But I think it's a really promising thing, and at the very least people recognize that what is wrong with the government is the government. So he is at least acknowledging that. But also he has been asked about the woke mind virus in the gaming industry. And Elon interrupted him nearly immediately, saying, "Make video games great again." A member in the crowd then asked, because he was doing a Q&A session at the end, and this guy asked a question saying, "With recent flops like Concord and Dustborn, prioritizing pronouns and things like that," and then Elon immediately cut him off and said, "That's annoying. The gamer continued, I was wondering, have you ever thought about making your own game studio and making an impact on the industry? Elon Musk had a thoughtful reply. You know, if there was one thing that would be a fun thing to do, it would be to start a gaming studio. I do actually intrinsically love video games, which I have covered on this channel before, where he did an interview with Lex Friedman and talked about how much he enjoyed Diablo 4 and Elden Ring and how he uses video games to enter what he calls a flow state.
Yep.
And I think there is a Zen thing with Elden Ring where, you know, because despite it being like a game that people consider really challenging, there's a lot of moments where you're just kind of exploring and taking in the environments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think you can do that in Diablo because of the perspective. It's very limited. But
I would put Death Stranding on those same kind of
Death Stranding,
lines as well.
it's the same kind of thing. So if there's one thing that would be a fun thing to do, it would be to start a gaming studio. I do actually intrinsically love video games, and I think actually if you apply AI to video games, you can really make incredible video games. I think generally for content, the problem with DEI and the woke mind virus is that it kills the art. As soon as you can see something that is forcibly imposed on the story and is discordant, it destroys the art. It's hard to enjoy the story. It kicks you out of the story because you can just feel that you are being lectured. And an audience member replied, yeah, you're seeing it in movies and TV and all kinds of stuff. It's like, let me enjoy my video games. To which Elon Musk replied, exactly, come on, not video games too. So again, I mean, he's been vocal against racism against white people or anti-whiteism or whatever you want to call it. So we know that he knows what is going on. But I thought it was extremely striking that he said it would be very fun to make a video game studio. So I want to know what you guys think about that. Could you see Elon Musk creating his own game studio? Probably would get the best people. And I think it could be like a big thing.
Oh, it could be a very huge thing in terms of like, you know, just like, because like, well, like to just kind of circle back to the game that we mentioned earlier, at the start of all this, Crimson Desert. One of the things that they mentioned, part of the reason why they're not going along with the buy-in by Sony was they have their own game engine. They don't want to be stuck on using Unreal 5, and all the kind of like stuff that's being, kind of hampered into this weakened gamer, state of existence, where a lot of these companies don't even have the capacity to hire people that are critical and knowledgeable and like actual legitimate engineers or anything like that. They just want, like people that they can slot in as a warm body that can basically the people that Kim Bel-Air talks about hiring. Get your friends, get the people that, will just go along with like your ideology to have a happy, fun, good time. Fuck that. Get people that actually know what the hell they're doing, can actually give you a reason contextually based on why they make the decisions that they make, and can actually do stuff that would otherwise not even be capable, because you're just dealing with people that are just also rands that are being, put in these positions of power that really don't have the merit to be there. So I think that it would be, an interesting thing to have, just in terms of just the general makeup of what the state of now would be in the game industry, so that you would actually, if you want to encourage competition within the market, you have to shake it up from time to time. And so like a lot of these companies have gotten way too comfortable and resting on their laurels because they just assume that they have the audience. They assume they have, the market share. So like if somebody could actually come in a way that legitimately disrupts all of that, then we might actually like see them come to their senses and say, oh shit, we actually have to be in competition with someone now.
Sorry, I was muted.
That's all right. These things happen.
No, for sure. And again, I think that, when he toyed around with the idea of buying Twitter, he bought it. And here's another thing too. He could buy, bear with me here, he could just buy Ubisoft, because Ubisoft's stock prices are so like they're in the toilet, right? If he waits a little bit longer, he could just buy them and he would already have a bunch of built-in franchises. He could bring back Splinter Cell.
Yeah.
Which I know people loved, right? Like, imagine, let's just speculate for a moment. Let's allow our imaginations and have a little bit of fun here, okay? If Elon Musk bought Ubisoft, what could he resurrect? What could he have like a great team resurrect that you guys would like? Rayman? Yes. Splinter Cell? Yeah, Chaos Theory. I mean, like I heard that was the bomb. And you know what? Michael Ironside is still alive. He could do the voice, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, even if he's just the director now, and like you take on like the role of like new characters, and he's just there to like kind of like oversee, passing it along to like a newer generation. At least having him there, like some manner of respect, that would be a great thing. But Michael Ironside's got way too much testosterone to be allowed to like even exist in just like a support auxiliary role at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask Vivian what Ubisoft has made. Hold on a second, John. I'm gonna let her talk, okay?
Yeah.
Hey, Vivian, what has Ubisoft made? What are some of the most popular titles?
Ubisoft is the creator of many popular games. Some of their most well-known titles include Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Rainbow Six Siege, and Watch Dogs. Have you played any of them?
All right, thanks, Vivian. So yeah, she also mentioned Rainbow Six Siege. And what was that? I never played that one. I remember this really cool Navy SEALs game that was on like I don't remember one of the PlayStation consoles, and you actually got a headset and you can give orders to the guys in your team. Do you remember that, dude? That was
Full Spectrum Warrior.
Was it? No. I think it was. I think it was actually called Navy SEALs, or it was like it had SEALs in the title, but I could be wrong. It was like a squad. It was a squad-based shooter, and you could like give commands to other guys in your squad, but you also had to play like a third-person shooter. Do you guys remember that? Anyway,
well, that sounds a lot like Full Spectrum Warrior. They might have done it with other titles, but I'm pretty sure that that was definitely because I mean that was one of the things about Full Spectrum Warrior was that it was all about the
SOCOM. That's it. Yes. SOCOM, U.S. Navy SEALs. That's the one I was thinking about. Marin says Prince of Persia. Yeah, that's a good one. Prince of Persia. There was a recent remake or something. It was like a 2D one, but a new Prince of Persia would be good.
Yeah, although SOCOM, as I recall, was a Sony first.
It was, but I think it was third person, but I could be. I don't remember. It's been a while.
It might have been like. Well, I just mean like in terms of the ownership. So because it was directly tied into Sony, and I can't remember. Yeah. I think it might have been like a secondary kind of ownership company, kind of like something like Shift Up or something like that. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for games that have gotten tossed by the wayside that could definitely have a resurgence if Elon Musk just went and did a hostile takeover of a company that has certainly suffered from the woke mind virus and would do far better probably in his hands than just becoming the proprietary ownership under Tencent because
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, if he can get it before Tencent, then I think we'd be in a good spot. But we'll see what happens. Tencent will probably be right, and if it comes down to it, like Tencent might make the better offer too. So, but it'd be nice, And even if not, like there's a lot of developers, like guys that have been sort of laid off or kicked out of various studios due to the Me Too movement and this DEI push. So there's probably a lot of really great talent that's just looking for a place to go, and he might offer it to them. So
as I recall, Hitman is that under Ubisoft? Because I know that's definitely gone through drastic changes in recent years to try to.
Oh, you know what? I don't know. It might be Hitman. I don't know. It might be. Okay, so let's move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. What do you think about Elon Musk possibly opening up a game studio or buying one that's already failing? Let me know in the comments. I would like to see it. Okay, so just a really short story that I think is kind of funny, but I just want to share it. So Shift Up CEO, boobs. Shift Up CEO says he was following his instincts when designing sexy characters for Stellar Blade and Goddess of Victory, Nike. Is that how you say it? Nike? It's something that users like and want, but I also do it because I like it. Yes, the guy is heterosexual and it shows. So he is basically saying, why do you have a problem with attractive women in video games or waifus? Like the ones for Nike, which I am displaying here. So on the subject of Nikkei, Kim, this is the the sort of the guy behind it, was then asked how exactly he approached designing the game's cast, to which he admitted, what I consider most important when designing characters is to make sure that the narrative is firmly linked to the game's story. Well, there is something firm going on here. All the design elements that make up the character must be combined in a setting that fits the story well. It's also important that the look of the character is not only cute, but also that the character's personality is expressed well in the right situation. Therefore, I think that visually appealing is a close second. Nevertheless, an attractive appearance is still important, so the creator's skill is tested in the pursuit of these two elements at the same time. So he likes his characters attractive. I know that's a wild concept.
Imagine feminine characters being completely feminine. Wow.
Yeah, imagine that. So that was it for that. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about it, except that I just think it's funny that he was just like, I don't understand why this is contentious.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the cheesecake. I think this is like a nice way to kind of like, segue to like, the things that make us happy, because I certainly feel much better.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, like he's got a solid point there. Like, this is about artistic integrity, and like if you don't want these companies to be beholden to woke mind virus kind of insanity or toxic positivity trends, then you actually have to allow them to be, the products of the, artistic directors and the people that are actually like devoted to like, telling their stories, and not just, falling in line with narrative design limitations, because those are always going to end up the exact same way and you get nothing good of it. Stellar Blade is probably one of the keynote titles of 2024 by the time it's all said and done with. We're getting into the last few months of the year. And, this is a game that even when Sony tried to kind of like step on their toes and like, pull their bullshit, it's just like, that's when it was like, well, don't worry about it. It'll be coming out on PC soon enough. So, like if you want to buy it now, by all means, go ahead and do that. Support us. But if you understand that we're kind of being fucked with, just know that it's only for a matter of time. And I totally appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I just thought it was kind of funny. But we are going to see like what, where it goes from there. I hope that people follow in this guy's footsteps.
Yeah.
I wanted to get into something a little bit funnier. We are going to talk a bit about Unknown 9 or Unknown Game, because nobody knows about it.
Right.
So in case you don't know, there was a game that came out called Unknown 9. I'm pausing it here because I want you to see. I want to show you this interview with the voice actress. I think she was a voice actress, but she definitely did motion capture. She was do you know what I'm talking about? Anya Chalotra? Anya Chalotra?
Say something good about it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, let's look at this video. So this is Anya Chalotra on the motion capture in Unknown 9 Awakening. I want you to give a listen to this. So I'm gonna like turn the music off for a second. Let me see here. Where's my Spotify at? Sorry guys. I try to be professional, Okay.
You got me on here, so like that's kind of points against that already.
Right. All right, so let's listen to this interview. It's about a minute long. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning.
I didn't audition. I was offered the opportunity, and I jumped at it. I grabbed it with both hands because it's what an amazing opportunity for me to do motion capture. I love working with my body. I'm very inspired by Andy Serkis. I've always wanted to be.
Oh, she's totally like Andy Serkis, guys.
I love studying animals.
I'm willing to work with
Heron is not an animal, but it's in the same world, and I did get to explore a lot more in my body with this character than I have done on screen or in theater, because of the space.
Making it too easy, lady.
Allows you and needs you to fully embody fully embody a person.
Wow. Okay. So let's see what fruit this bore. Here's a clip from the game Unknown 9 Awakening, just so you guys can see just how, awesome this is. Stealth mechanics, guys. Or something. These are enemies that should be attacking her.
Right.
This is how busted the game came out, like how it was. She's
Maybe
slapping
they're just
them.
interested in working with her body,
This is the world that women want. The ability to hit men without repercussions.
Right. Jesus.
I'll be feeling that one tomorrow.
Look at her stuck right there. This game came out in 2024, guys.
Yep.
But it's
Last
diverse.
week or the week before, as I recall. It's only been a few days.
Yeah, it's pretty new. Look at those animations. You get Mass Effect 3 vibes. Oh no, Mass Effect Andromeda, I'm sorry.
Run.
Look at the hand. Talk to the hand. I don't even know what this is about.
Jesus Christ, this is like fucking Forspoken Indian edition.
It looks worse.
You're right.
Right in the... That's not cool.
Right?
Oh yeah, I love this. These transitional bits. You should see this over and over and over and over. No, we're done. Oh, eluding pursuit. Hop that, then hop it again. This is like peak gameplay, guys. Some people have paid for this game.
I mean, if you want to just throw your money away, I can give you my PayPal account. I'll buy groceries with it. Something good will come of this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a couple dozen eggs is the same cost as this game.
Yeah.
Some people bought special editions of this game. Was this another one of those games that was going to be like a multi-release, massive platform success? Like where it was going to be a show and a movie and a soundtrack and a Broadway musical?
I mean, they do have all the appropriate things, an omni-ethnic reverse woman of color,
What is slow? Yeah, the wall climbing is the best. Somebody bought this game to make this video. I think that person deserves all of the subs.
Right.
Oh. What is why is she floating? Alright. So that's yeah, that was Unknown 9 Awakening. And
it looks like that's a very, very ironic name because it looks like they slept through development.
women trying to beat the wall.
Right. Oh God! Oh, you've only got so long, ladies.
That's right. Game of the year.
The wall will win eventually.
Oh no! So yeah, there you go. That's the wall is undefeated. That's right. Okay. So let's get in. Is there anything? We got about a few minutes left, so let's get into some cake. We're gonna look at some sales, and we're gonna start with, of course, Concord, because I just like looking at the zero.
Yeah,
I just like looking at the zero. So, so yeah, Concord sales 0 still. mixed reviews. But I don't know. It seems like when I go to like other websites, they're still advertising this game. So I wonder, like, why are there still ads floating around? Maybe they are trying to resurrect it because of that show.
Yeah, that show. I think if that show weren't still in existence, I think that they'd probably be more willing to let it go by the wayside and just sacrifice, the story that is Concord and just, salvage the engine. Because an engine you can use over and over, as we've seen, like BioWare do for 30 some odd years, or like Bethesda, especially. Sure. Like there's a lot of companies that like to use their engine for far too long. And they've invested, hundreds of millions of dollars in that. But I think that, they're trying to save face, and they think that maybe, just maybe, that people are going to be interested in it once this game-based series, anthology series comes out on Amazon. I think that there's got to be some corporate synergy behind it or something like that.
Yeah.
In terms of support. So, but I don't think it's going to ultimately pan out unless, as we were talking about that one day, they're going to have to reskin everything and give away those skins, and maybe even tie in some kind of if you play this game, you'll earn discounts for future purchases on other things. They're literally going to have to pay people to play this one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, for sure. So it is. One other thing too is Unknown 9 worse than Star Wars Outlaws? I think yes.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, I think it topped it, but it's diverse, guys. So that's all that really matters. Is it's diverse, and
it doesn't even have the empty brand label.
Just play the buggy mess, bigot.
Yeah, of Star Wars to rely on to platform it a little bit further. Like Unknown 9, it's over and done with already.
Yeah, I already don't know about it. Okay, so next we got Dustborn, 11 people, still, I mean, obviously the devs behind it are trying to keep it relevant. This game is also basically dead. It's on its last legs. Once people have played through it, it's over. And I don't think, I have other David Cage games. I actually own a copy of Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and what's the last one? Detroit Become Human. Yeah. So, and I did a series a while back, Detroit Become Woke, and it's on this channel, but it's kind of old. It goes back a ways. I would go back and play all of those just for comedy, but I don't think I could do Dustborn. I don't think I could get through it. It's just way too cringe. More than that, more than Beyond Two Souls is pretty freaking cringe. Detroit Become Human is even more cringe. I think the most normal one is Heavy Rain, and even that one has some cringe in it. So. But I don't know if you guys would like me to do playthroughs of any of those games. Let me know in the comments because I might bring it back. Maybe after the spooky season is over, we could do some. I think Beyond Two Souls is kind of hilarious.
Merry Cringemas.
Oh, and it also has the a woman who was taken away from us way too soon, Ellen Page, in it. So there is that. You could see her again as a video game character.
Yeah, you could do I say, Merry Cringemas. You'd be a whole whole season.
Yeah. All right. Let's. So what's going on with? Unknown 9 Awakening has 107 people playing it. That's not good. It did have a peak concurrent player count of 285, but it's another one that's kind of DOA and full price game, I believe. Yes. So
this was the one that got included with, we were saying, if you actually bought a video card, this is the freebie that they threw at you to kind of get you to go along with. So that's probably where some of this is about, is some people actually wanted to test their new video card, assuming that this title is a new game. Maybe it'll actually take advantage of your, and yet we saw what it's capable of just a moment ago. So yeah.
You are Haruna, a Questor, whatever that means, Questor, born with the ability to venture into a mysterious dimension, the Fold. On her quest for powerful hidden knowledge, she must learn to master her powers of the Fold to fight a secret society with a hostile agenda. This is literally every young adult novel ever. I like the
Why does the
plot.
fold seem like some kind of like vaginal based thing? You know,
Only a
like,
woman understands the fold. The
That's
folds
right.
of the labia. Okay, anyway, moving on. Yeah, Unknown 9 Awakening, DOA. Next, we got Zao, because this came up in a conversation as well, right?
This has been the conversation of my weekend and into
yeah.
today. Good God.
And it, I think it just launched. No, it comes out tomorrow. So this might be a little bit unfair. Well, so yeah, release date is tomorrow. No, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. That was in April. It's been out for a while. Yeah, it's been out for months.
The company may shut down tomorrow.
Yeah,
if it
maybe.
hasn't already. But because I know
Yeah.
that's kind of like part of the whole thing about it is like the guy, he was like, you know, I dedicate this to my dead dad, which is all well and good enough, I suppose, except that it's like, why are you putting this on your dead dad's, like, you know.
It's
like,
the verse. Shut up. It's the verse. Don't be
Right,
racist.
right, right.
It's the
you're
verse.
Right.
Allow me to cry as an actor.
Right, I shouldn't chuck spears at something that's already been killed.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Zao is another one. Dead on arrival. Let's read the plot synopsis. Wield the dance of the shaman. Reclaim your father's spirit. Brave the beautiful and treacherous land of Kanzera with the god of death in Tales of Kanzera. TM Zao. So it's like we're making a point about this being like kind of culturally significant, but we're also going to put a TM on the end of it, so you know we own it, and we will send lawyers after you trying to like use this. A Metroidvania style adventure crafted by Surgent Studios. Yeah, so there we go.
They definitely dealt with the god of death, and the god of death won.
Yeah, it looks like this is also not working out. Next, we have Starfield.
Here's the interesting thing, though. You can actually almost see that the modern audience tops out at 287 people, because that's roughly like where these games kind of like get to, like, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, like the video we saw just now of Unknown 9 involved one of the Unknown 9 that bought the game.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, so Starfield, this is not a small studio, so it's worth pointing out. Bethesda, big company, only 7,149. It's not terrible for for what it is, but I don't think it's anywhere near like Fallout 4, Fallout New. Well, that wasn't New Vegas, right? No, that wasn't Bethesda. But Skyrim, fucking pronouns. Yeah, that's why we're talking about this, because fucking pronouns.
Well, they just did their update a couple weeks ago. And,
the new DLC, yeah, it didn't really do a lot for them. Not a huge bump.
It's languishing right back to like the numbers pre update.
Yep. So more like a black hole of fun. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then lastly, we have, for the woke games, we have Homeworld 3, which is 53 people. Oh my God, guys! Homeworld sells. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This you deserve better than this. You deserve better. But I wanted to follow it because I was like curious about where it was going with that. So
yeah, how's Helldivers doing on their redemption arc?
Well, let's see. I'll come back to that one. I haven't added it to the list yet, but let's go to the next thing. Space Marine 2 still doing pretty well at 23,000 in game right now, considering it's like midday here in the States. It's evening in the UK, and I know that the Space Marine franchise is like way bigger across the pond, but not bad. I mean, still, its peak was last month, all-time peak last month, 225,000. And now that they've just, one of the things that's cool about Space Marine 2 is that Saber Interactive released a bunch of free updates to it. So they added another co-op mission, they added another game mode, they added a bunch of skins. They just added a bunch of stuff. I think there's a new weapon that has been released. So they are, adding more to the game. And right now, it was just as a thank you to the players, which is another important, point that I wanted to bring up. The Saber Interactive guys at this company, they gave us free content because we supported their game, and they were expressing this crazy thing that nobody expresses anymore: gratitude. They were like, "We want to thank you for making our game a success. here's free shit. Granted, there's going to be season passes and stuff, but like all of it, according to them, is just like aesthetics, like skins and things that don't affect the gameplay. Right. So, and of course, you don't have to buy it. But yeah, Space Marine 2 still kicking ass. Black Myth Wukong been out for what? Like 2 months now. Oh my God, yeah, 2 months ago. Yep, and it is at 52,958. Pretty good for a single player experience. So I thought I would point, and that's again way better than like all these supposed games that are supposed to change everything with all of their great stories. No Sweet Baby Inc. involvement. There you go, big hit. So how is Helldivers 2? Let's see. Helldivers 2, 27,000. This is on the again. They've been making a lot of changes to the game, and they have been positive for the most part. The enthusiasm is returning. It's not at what it was, and there is all the shenanigans with Sony and all that. But I think considering stuff that's within their control, I think that their Arrowhead is doing their best to course correct, and I'm here for it. I will allow them the opportunity for that. Is there any other games you want me to look up?
Just because I know it's going to be low, but I want to keep beating the drum for the Great Rebellion. Just because, like, I have this initiative that we can do a grassroots effort and actually support a game. And get good word of mouth to actually start sustaining it and getting it to where I think it should at least have more than 85 sales.
Great Rebellion has 1 player in game. Yeah, it's a small game, but I am gonna be so okay. Let's wrap up because I do want to. Speaking of Great Rebellion, I do want to say a few things. Well, first you tell me what you have going on, and then I'll tell it, and then we'll close it out. So, what do you got going on this week?
For the moment, this week, my normal scheduled events. So, tomorrow, though, I will be doing reality-based Rising Stars with Ryan Roger Thay. So, I guess that might end up. I'm not sure if I'm just doing it with him just this one time or if I'm now going to actually be helping him as a co-host in that endeavor. But other than that, I just have my normal Thursday Will of the Fans, Friday reality-based Tangent Kings, which I'm supposed to invite you to if you have the free time to come by.
What day is it?
Friday at it'll be 4 p.m. your Eastern time zone for the start. If you're interested in swinging by, we'll be.
I'd like to, but it's going to be a little tough. Because I usually pick up my wife. I could maybe make that. It depends on what happens that day. But don't pencil me in. Yeah, for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll let him know. I'll let him know that it might be limited availability kind of thing. But then other than that, if he hits goal on Neon Leon, I usually try to be a part of that show during the extended part. And then we'll be back here again on Saturday, and I will get to anything beyond Saturday when we meet again on Saturday. Okay. But other than that, I would say, safe travels ahead. Have a wonderful week going forward, and, be awesome as always. And I'll leave it to you, sir.
All right. Well, tomorrow I'm going to be... I'm going to try to set up something with one of the devs from the game jam that happened last week. I think he might have been the winner, and he sent me his game to test out. I haven't had a chance to do it yet, and I kind of forgot what it was even called, but I'm going to look at it right now. I think it's like a sort of like tower defense game. Mm-hmm. And I don't have it here in my, I don't remember where I put it, but I do have it like in here. It's a small file. And I've also been talking to about 4 or 5 other devs that were involved in the same sort of game jam, and they all had little indie projects they were putting out. And so I thought it'd be great if I do a series and talk to each one of them on separate occasions. So tentatively going to be talking to a guy tomorrow. Let me just look at my phone here so I can get his name right. And I also probably missed a bunch of messages because I've been doing this show. But so there was, hold on a second here. Taylor Allen. Yes, that's his name. Taylor Allen. And he has a game called Blade of Aventine. and it's a 1 to 4 player tower defense game. So it actually has co-op on it. So I'm gonna check that one out and probably talk to him tomorrow, or at least I'm gonna try for that. And and then I got, so that's tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday, and I'm also gonna do Friday the 13th tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening with Lindsay and whoever else wants to join us. This is October, and we want to play Friday the 13th as much as we can before they essentially shut the servers down. I understand that even after they're down, you'll be able to play single player and stuff, but come on, why would you do that? Like it's meant to be a multiplayer experience. So please, if you've never seen Friday the 13th, the game, definitely come check out my streams. I also have them. Obviously, they're still up on this channel. Yeah. They are a lot of fun. It's janky. People are ridiculous online. It's a good time. So I had a great time with it myself as well. Yeah, that'll be tonight. And then tomorrow, that'll be tomorrow, not tonight. Tonight I have other work to do. On Thursday, I'm probably going to do more #Blood. And on Friday, I'm going to do some more Days Gone during the day. Or I might do that in reverse order. Then Saturday, I got a show with John. And whoever knows, like I might show up on somebody's stream. And I also am working on getting guests on, like Aiden Paladin, who's a friend of my other channel. And she's like big gamer and involved in the culture war stuff. And I got a number of other people. So yeah, be on the lookout. Please subscribe if you're interested. It's going to be great. We're going to have a lot of interesting people on, people that I've known for many years online that has been talking about more of the sort of like political downstream from the cultural stuff, you know, and I think that it's like important to understand that so that you can much better navigate things. So anyway, that's all I got to say for that. This show has gone a little bit over, so I'm going to end it here. Let me just do a quick check to make sure I didn't miss any super chats or anything like that. I did not, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to end the show there. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment. Let me know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of The Week in Culture. And we'll talk to you guys in the next video. Long live Vivian.
And all the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
I want people in the industry to be a little bit louder about people being mean to other people. And maybe say it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe say we don't want you around if you're going to be a cunt.
Yeah.
And hateful. And that the games industry is diverse naturally. Not because anyone's making them be diverse. Because the world is diverse, you stupid motherfucker. And if you have a problem with that, come fight me. Physically. Bitch.
Has anyone taken you up on that yet?
No, because they're all pussies.
Yep.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Obviously, the environment down here is all salt. The ceiling's salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt, and to an extent, the air is salt. And you breathe that in, and you can constantly taste the salt.